Batman Returns on the Super Nintendo has always been one of my favorite superhero games, one I try to revisit every year or so. I gushed over it when I reviewed the game several years ago on my channel, but something I have not done is show my admiration for its Sega-released counterpart, because it too kicks some serious butt, even after all these decades and console generations. The visuals of Batman Returns on the SNES are very colorful and vibrant for the most part, whereas the version released on the Sega Genesis and the Sega CD is very gloomy and atmospheric, a better representation of the darker and more graphic moments from the live-action film. Batman Returns on the Sega Genesis and Sega CD were developed by Malibu Interactive and act as a direct sequel to Sunsoft's Batman game that had been released the year prior, based on the original 1989 film. Despite being from a different developer, Batman Returns still feels like a natural continuation of Sunsoft's title in terms of gameplay. It focuses heavily on platforming, using Batman's grapnel gun, but this time around, it's implemented much better in my opinion. You can not only use it to pull yourself up to higher ledges, but also swing across gaps. I love the animations given to Batman when he's scaling rooftops, walking up the steep slopes, or sliding down them. The combat animations in this game feel a lot smoother than in the original, and you have access to a few more gadgets to help damage enemies, like smoke bombs, homing batarangs, and a powerful Bat Swarm ability. The selection for them is in the form of a utility belt that pops up at the bottom of the screen, which is pretty neat. At times, the control can be a little unresponsive in this game, and the hit detection isn't perfect, making it quite difficult, far more challenging than the first game was. But honestly, I prefer playing this one over the Sunsoft original. It just has more layers to it gameplay-wise, and I think overall, it's aged much better too, especially if you have a Game Genie with you to help alleviate some of the pressure. Both the Sega Genesis and Sega CD versions of Batman Returns are more or less the same. However, the Sega CD one was released later, in May of 1993, and would feature improved music and additional levels with the Batmobile and Bat Ski Boat, as seen in the film, making use of the Sega CD's stronger graphics hardware. The cutscenes at the beginning of these driving sections, as well as the levels themselves, showed off some really impressive and badass graphics for the time. Honestly, they still look amazing even to this day. Batman Returns on the Sega CD is the definitive way to play the Sega version of the game, in my opinion. I think having the driving sections sprinkled in throughout the game provides a lot more variety than just having the platforming levels alone. The driving stages do get repetitive though. All you're doing in them is driving forward, dodging obstacles, and destroying a set number of enemies within a time limit. While it's nice having them as a bonus, they are just supplemental at the end of the day. The meat and potatoes of the game, when you're having the most fun, is when you're playing as Batman. What's interesting about Batman Returns on Sega, and something that sets it apart from the other versions of the game I have looked at on the channel, is that its story starts much later in the film, immediately following the death of the Ice Princess at the hands of the Penguin, with Gotham citizens believing Batman is responsible. Unfortunately, there aren't any other cutscenes in the game after that, not even text boxes during the levels, so you don't have a lot of context behind what you are doing, unless of course you have seen the film it's based on. But even if you have, the game takes several liberties with the source material. As an adaptation, it's far less accurate than the versions of Batman Returns on the NES and Super NES were. The game, assuming you are playing the one on Sega CD, begins with a driving stage, having you race through the streets of Gotham in the Batmobile and deal with armed vehicles being driven by members of Penguin's Red Triangle Circus gang. Batman then scales the rooftops of Gotham City and encounters and defeats Catwoman for the first time. On street level, the Dark Knight is attacked by two Gotham statues pulling levers and shooting fireballs from their mouths, which is a stretch. The statues were seen in the movie, but I'd like to know who turned them into harbingers of death. Why are they trying to kill you? Is it the citizens getting revenge on Batman for killing the Ice Princess? Who knows? After destroying the statues, you make your way into a nearby church and have to climb its many floors, culminating with a fight against the Penguin in the Bell Tower. A church was not used as a location in Batman Returns. There was a cathedral in the 1989 film, but I don't know why they went with a church again here. The second of 3 Batmobile stages is called Winter Wonderland, where you can see circus tents and Ferris wheels on the horizon. The following level is at Shrek's department store. You take on the circus strongman out front before entering the building. You climb up various floors, even sliding down some escalators, and then battle Catwoman again, and the Penguin, this time throwing deadly buzzsaws at you. Another Batmobile stage happens, placing you back in the city with the Bat Signal and Wayne Manor visible in the distance. I feel like this Batmobile section and the previous one should have been switched around though, because the following level is at the Red Triangle Circus, and it would have made more sense to have Batman traveling in that direction, towards the circus beforehand. I kind of like how this game has you go to the actual circus itself though, which I would assume is abandoned. You see where all of these deranged criminals came from. It's one of the more memorable locations in this game, with a lot of interesting and creepy visuals. The circus stage ends on top of the train from the movie, filled with the kidnapped children, so I guess in the game they had taken them to the circus instead of the direction of Penguin's lair. I think that's even spookier. After stopping the train, you drive through the sewer tunnels of Gotham in the Bat ski boat on your way to Penguin's lair. All you really do in this sequence is go off jumps and dodge various hazards, some of them moving. I prefer the Batmobile levels over the lone Bat ski boat one, because the water effects can get a bit nauseating after a while. The final stages of the game have you traverse the massive sewer system beneath Gotham, a confusing maze of twisting pipes. You fight Penguin, who shoots at you with his sewage gun, before fleeing to the inner depths of his lair, that's filled with ice-covered platforms. There's a narrow tunnel you go through, riding on several ice blocks. You have to time your jumps perfectly with the grapnel gun, or you will hit the low ceiling and fall into the water. It's pretty tricky. I died a lot. The final boss is obviously against Penguin. You damage his duck vehicle and then fight him wearing his scuzzy jammies. You destroy his signal relay and then he slumps over and slides into the water. It looks pretty funny. The strengths of Batman Returns on Sega lie within its dark atmosphere and visuals. The presentation in it is just stellar. I also enjoy the improvements made to the gameplay from what was found in the original game from Sunsoft. It's held back a little, though, by the lack of story context it gives, and the bizarre liberties it takes with the events of the film in areas. While I do enjoy playing Batman Returns on Sega, the one on SNES is still the superior version in my opinion. It has far more replay value and is much easier too. I want to thank you all for watching my review of Batman Returns on Sega Genesis and Sega CD. If you've played either of them or both, let me know your thoughts on them in the comments section below. If you enjoyed the video, think about supporting the channel by subscribing, hitting that bell icon for notifications, and by becoming a producer over on patreon.com if you can. I will see you all in the next one. Take care, stay safe, and always stay nerdy.